Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Dare County. I'd like to thank Governor Stein for being here this afternoon, Transportation Secretary, Mr. Hopkins, also Public Safety Secretary, Mr. Buffaloe. Thank you, Director Ray, and certainly General Hunt. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. And thank you, everyone in this room, for being here this afternoon. I want to thank them personally for being here and taking the opportunity to assess the damage from Hurricane Aaron here in Dare County. And I'd like to also thank everybody in this room for being here, the media. Thank you all. As we know, every disaster begins and ends at the local level. Here in Dare County, this is not our first rodeo. We're no strangers to hurricanes. We're well tested, and we work hard to be resilient and self-sufficient. But we also know that our strength is multiplied when we have the support of these folks standing before you today, behind us. We're blessed, we're truly blessed and grateful for the remarkable partnership that we have with our neighboring counties. And I've had multiple phone calls, Governor, from many other counties throughout the state offering assistance. Also, our local municipalities, there's 6 of them, they've offered assistance. Our state and federal partners, as we mounted our response to Hurricane Aaron, knowing that additional state and federal resources were staged and ready to assist with both most assuring and extremely essential. I got a text just on Wednesday that the state had 35 plus pieces of equipment just ready and staged and ready to go to assist us, Governor. And this is very, very reassuring to hear that when we have a storm coming for us. We're fortunate that Hurricane Aaron turned out to be relatively small, even for us. But we certainly know and we certainly understand that the big one will come one day soon. And when it does, we know that we have the folks standing before you here today that will be with us. They'll be opening shelters, they'll be providing commodities, they'll be pushing for federal disaster declarations, and they'll be certainly supporting our recovery. Together, we'll be stronger, more resilient. We'll be ready for the next storm. The kind of support is critical to communities like ours to have a governor that's strong with his cabinet to help us through situations like this. Let me just take a moment to recognize the team here in this room. They're employees of Dare County. They're staff members from all over the county here in this room, the men and women who worked to carry out our local response. They are the ones that make the plans, who stand ready, and who deliver when the moment comes. They are an incredible team, and I'd like to recognize them right now with a round of applause, please. I've been here every day this week with them through this, and I look and I see what they do. And Governor, it's incredible what our local staff does here in the community to keep the community informed and to keep things rolling. I also want to thank our partners at the National Weather Service. Their timely and accurate forecasts give us the information we need to call on a timely evacuation in Hatteras Island. Now let me be clear. We never like to tell our visitors to leave. It's not an easy decision that we have to make. But safety will always be our #1 priority, and we are eager to welcome the visitors back as soon as it's safe to do so. As always, I cannot, and I repeat this numerous times, I cannot thank NCDOT for their professionalism. I call them our road pros, Governor. You've seen them out there. When the waves are breaking over the dunes, they're out there still pushing the dunes. It's incredible the work that they do. They work nonstop. And they continue to do so as we speak right now. They're building those dunes back to make it a safe place for our visitors, our non-resident property owners, and our property owners to travel up and down NC-12. That's no small task after a storm, and we couldn't keep Hatteras Island connected, certainly without their dedication. Our first responders, fire, EMS, ocean rescue, and law enforcement, thank you for your willingness to put the needs of your others before your own in the most difficult circumstances. Your commitment to this community never wavers, and it does not go unnoticed. Finally, I want to acknowledge the people of Hatteras Island. Time and again, you face these challenges with strength, with grace, and resilience. Lord knows you deal with a lot, but your spirit is what makes the island so special. Oh, God bless you, and thank you. Governor, thank you.
Chair Woodard, thank you for the welcome. Thank you for those heartfelt words, all of which I share. I am pleased to be here with Major General Hunt from the North Carolina National Guard, Secretary Buffaloe, Department of Public Safety, Secretary Hopkins, Department of Transportation, and Will Ray, the Director of Emergency Management. The State Emergency Response Team unofficial motto is prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Now, we didn't have the absolute best because as we were down in Hatteras, we saw some businesses that took it on the chin. Some homeowners experienced real damage to their property. But my goodness, North Carolina dodged a bullet with Hurricane Erin. She was just a few more miles offshore, and that made the difference in a widespread devastation and what we experience today. No reported loss of life. Now, Highway 12 needs a ton of work. And what's incredible about the DOT and their hardworking crews is they were on the highway before the storm. They were on the highway during the storm, and they are on the highway right now. We visited with Natalie at Frisco Rod and Gun, and she said on a Friday afternoon in August, you wouldn't have been able to find a parking spot in this lot. And we were the only cars in that parking lot because nobody can get there. So we know that this county, Dare County, depends on Highway 12 being open for your residents, but also open for your tourists and all the business that they bring to this region. And so I want to thank DOT for their industriousness and hard work to making sure that we get this road open for you all as quickly as we possibly can. I want to thank the National Guard, General Hunt. They had a couple hundred troops here. They're all demobilizing today. It's wonderful that they get to be home with their families this weekend because what it means is there was not widespread human impacts here. I want to thank State Emergency Management and everything they did to help coordinate and partner with their partners here at Dare, Hyde, and Currituck counties. We had a number of swiftwater rescue and search and rescue teams that deployed from other communities in this state. They left their areas to come here to help you if it was necessary. Thank goodness they were not needed, and they too will be going home to be with their families this weekend. So I want to thank all of our state hardworking public servants, all of the local officials and local first responders who have done everything they can to prepare for this storm. And let's just count our blessings that this was not the one. And we will be ready, however, Chairman, when that one comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. I think as you've heard, we talk about partnership a lot. It's a buzzword we use in emergency management, and I think standing here in the Dare Emergency Operations Center, I think you see it in action. I think as the chair said, I think I probably should have just let him do my whole talk here. I think everything begins and ends locally, and our goal at the state level is to make sure that there are resources in place to support our local communities, whatever they may need. Your residents and you deal with it well before we get here, and we'll continue to deal with it as you move through recovery, working with DOT and others on how we bring people back to this community safely. And just on behalf of the State Emergency Response Team, thank you. Thank you for the work that many of you have done over the last week and will do, especially our partners at DOT and others as we continue to try to reopen NC-12 and get this community back. As the governor said, we are in the process today of demobilizing all of the major response assets that have come from both our local agencies, state agencies, and the North Carolina National Guard. And again, we're really grateful for the men and women of the National Guard who stepped up and were willing to support whatever we needed, including some of our National Guard partners from out of state. I think as we were looking at some of the contingency planning and potential need for air movement of resources, we also brought resources in from a partner in Georgia. And so again, are grateful to those capabilities. I think as we continue to see local evacuation orders lifted, as we see ferry service restored in NC-12, I would ask and continue to remind folks to heed what you're hearing from your local officials, especially right now when it's a beautiful Friday afternoon. Here, there's still a lot of work to do. I mean, as we saw this afternoon, DOT has been after it and is continuing to get after it. We need those folks to be able to do their work unimpeded. We need public safety to be able to have access to critical areas unimpeded. And so would ask folks to come back, but do it in a way that you're following that direction from your local authorities. Again, we will work with Dare County over the next several weeks as we look at damage assessments, really understand what the impact of Aaron has been and how we can marshal resources across the kind of state interagency to support your local community here. But again, on behalf of the State Emergency Response Team, thank you for your partnership. Thank you for what you have done this week and for what we will all do together in the future as partners. Thank you, Governor.
Good afternoon. I'm Joey Hopkins, Secretary of North Carolina DOT. I want to start by thanking our teams at DOT. Wynn Bridgers is a division engineer in Division 1, and him and his folks have been working since before the storm started to help clear NC-12 and prep for that. They staged equipment, like the chairman mentioned. They staged signs and barricades, and they've just done tremendous work. But in addition to that, we have Jed Dixon here, who's our ferry division director, and him and his teams have been working equally as hard. They helped evacuate Ocracoke. Over 2,200 people were on our boats leaving there before the storm hit. So I really want to thank them for what they've done, and also for the work that they've done today to make sure that all the routes are safe to get on and off Ocracoke, and they've started ferrying equipment back. You may have heard we've been able to restart the routes across the Sound from Swan Quarter and Cedar Island. Started those about noon today. And right now we're running that for essential personnel and residents only. And we'll open that up to others as Hyde County gives us word that we can do so. With that said, I mean, there's been a lot of folks talk about NC-12. We all know that NC-12 is the interstate of the Outer Banks. It's the lifeblood of the Outer Banks, and it's important to us that we help that recover to pre-storm conditions. We will continue to work on that until it's done. However, we had 2 new breaches overnight on P Island that have since been repaired, I'm happy to say. So that sand has been moved, and what sand was left, we used that to repair the dunes. We'll continue to do that, and hopefully we can open up more in the coming days, if not sooner. But as we see those high tides and see what additional damage we may see, we may have to readdress that. I will say, happy to say, that so far we have no damage to NC-12. So that's positive news. It's just sand and moving the water. So we'll continue after it. I also want to mention the partnerships here that's been mentioned earlier. We couldn't do what we do without the U.S. Park Service. Thank you, Superintendent Hallett, for you and your team. It's a great partnership that you have with our local folks. The U.S. Coast Guard with the Ferry Division work hand in hand with us to make sure that we can get those boats back on the water safely. So thank everybody for that. And Governor, I'll turn it back over to you.
At this time, we'd be happy to take questions from the media to any of the folks who are up here.
Given the damage to NC-12 that did happen, and knowing that you guys are assessing this, since this wasn't, quote, the big one, going forward, if this just comes as part of the territory based on where we are, do you have any plans down the road, say 50, 20 years, to help avoid that, to make sure that NC-12 can stay sustainable? I mean, thinking about all the economy that especially it brings to that area as well.
Yes, NC-12 is critical to the Outer Banks. It's what connects the residents and the tourists to one of the most beautiful pieces of earth in the United States, and that's our Outer Banks. So we know we need to have long-term solutions. There are groups that have been formed to look at them and come up with proposals to the Department of Transportation. Your Board of Transportation Representative Tess Judge is here today, and we want to work with the community to make sure that we keep folks connected. That's what our roads do, is they keep us all connected.
You talked about some damages to businesses and homeowners. What does that damage look like when you saw it yourself?
Yeah, what was the name of the hotel? I think it was the Cape Hatteras Inn that we visited in Buxton, and the water had come up underneath the hotel, ruined a lot of their parking lot, ruptured some of their pipes. So they've got work to do, and it's going to take them a few weeks to get back on their feet. But the head of the crew was right there with his mini dozer, and he was just trying to figure out, does he get started today or does he wait till after the high tide tonight? Because there may be more overwash this evening. So even though the storm is moving away from us, it is not fully gone. There will be another high tide. People who are here this weekend should not be getting in the ocean. The rip tides are still real. The water at low tide was still very rough, very violent. So we're hopeful that they will be able to get back on their feet as quickly as possible.
Governor, we've heard from folks in the Buxton area that obviously while this was not the most severe storm possible, the erosion from it, especially in the last 24 hours, was very severe. Is there any plans to address that, particularly in the Buxton area? And how exposed are those homes and businesses at this point?
Well, there were a number of homes that we took an aerial tour, and there were homes that were completely surrounded by water. They were on their piers, but they were in the water, and so it's real. We cannot stop the ocean, but what we can do is move sand and try to buttress it so that when there's big tides or big waves, that it slows it down. It keeps it from having maximum damage, and we're going to continue to do everything we can. We have to work with our federal partners in the Army Corps of Engineers on beach renourishment, but this is always going to be, this issue will never go away. These are living dunes, and these folks out here know that.
Are there any plans, given those areas there, mentioning the homes that is the ocean under pilings and the north end of Buxton, are there any thought or any plans given to thinking about how perhaps there could be some incentives to property owners to move their homes back away from areas that are hotspots?
Yeah, there has been federal funding to help us deal with resilience, to try to, in these areas where there's flooding, whether it's on the shore or in a floodplain in a river, to address those properties. Unfortunately, all of that funding has been held up, the BRIC funding. So I've continued to reach out to the Department of Homeland Security to try to unlock that funding so we can put it to good use, whether it's here on the Outer Banks or in the flood zones in the rest of the state.
How much, you said that funding is held up. Do you have a figure on how much of that BRIC funding is involved?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 85 million, but we can confirm that.
We'll take one last question.
Yes, this is for Secretary Hopkins. You said there were 2 breaches on Key Island. I was wondering if one of them is where the locals call it the Isabel Inlet, which was, the Isabel?
No,
The inlet?
New
Inlet. And I'm just curious if it's at that same location where there was that major breach before and they built the bridge near it, over it.
So first of all, the short answer is no, but let me clarify too. When I say breach, the island has not been breached. It's the sand dune that's been breached, and then allowing the wave action in the sand to get on NC-12. So the 2 areas are right there near the park. At the entrance of the park was the southernmost area, And that's where the sign is, where the parking lot is, the visitor center, and then the other areas between there and the end of the Mark Bass Knight Bridge.